Hello, and thank you for taking the time to watch this video. By now, you know that the district and the union negotiating teams have reached a tentative agreement on this year's contract. So the next step is ratification. So the purpose of this video is to give you the information that you need to make sure ratification goes smoothly at your worksite. It's important for ratification to go smoothly. In fact, we have a legal responsibility to make sure ratification goes smoothly. We, the union, negotiate the contract for all members of the bargaining unit, and Florida statute requires that all bargaining unit members have the opportunity to vote on the contract, regardless of whether they're members of the union or not. Certain steps within the ratification process have already taken place. The USEP Executive Board voted to move ratification forward. Then the USEP Rep Council voted to move forward with ratification. Additionally, the contract language and the summaries have been posted on the USEP website. By now, you should have received a packet with your ratification materials. If you don't have that packet in front of you, you might want to pause this video to grab the packet. The idea is we want to make sure that you actually have the materials that you need. You should have within that packet the notice to post announcing the site of ratification voting, a sign-in list of the teachers or the SRPs at your work site. It's a separate packet for each bargaining unit. There's an SRP packet and there's an instructional packet. Your packet should also include ballots. Please verify that you have a sufficient number of ballots for all eligible teachers in that packet and all eligible SRP in that packet. If not, please call the USEP office and additional ballots will be provided. You also should have within that packet the return ballot envelope and the vote verification form. One of the next steps that you're going to want to take is to get with your principal or your worksite supervisor in advance to designate specific time and place for voting. And you want to make sure that that happens within the range of when ratification can take place. You also want to have your ratification voting notices posted on the USEP bulletin board at the sign-in area and with copies of the actual language in the media center or other central secure location. When you think about scheduling the ratification voting time, remember that some employees work different hours. There are some employees that work part-time or evening hours. You want to make sure you let everyone know when voting is going to take place. Send out emails, also utilize the public address system. At the beginning of your scheduled ratification day, you want to announce with an announcement the location and the time that ratification voting will be held. Get help. We do not recommend that you do this ratification process by yourself. Try to have at least 2 people handling the ballot distribution. If you've got multiple building reps at your site, that could be a great way to have at least 2 people. You can also recruit members that aren't building reps, but just to get them to help out with the ratification process. You can also reach out to our office if you need additional help with ratification. The bottom line is that you want to staff your designated vote site for the specified time period. So in that packet that we talked about earlier, you've got the ballot return envelope. Go ahead now and prepare that ballot return envelope. On the front of the envelope, write down your work site and circle the appropriate bargaining unit. If it's the instructional envelope, circle teacher. If it's for SRP, circle SRP. So now let's talk about the actual voting procedures. So there you are, you're ready for people to come vote. What do? So when people want to come and vote, you want to pull out that roster that we talked about earlier that's in your packet. Have the employee initial by his or her name on the sign-in list. Have them do that before you give them a ballot. Once they initial, give them that ballot. Allow the employee to vote privately. I know we don't have voting booths or anything like that, but let them step away and vote privately. Once they've voted, you'll take that ballot and you'll place it into the return ballot envelope. Keep the voted ballots separate from the blank ballots. So what do you do if you have an employee that shows up to vote, but they're not actually on your roster? Well, the bottom line is this. If that person is part of the bargaining unit, we do want to allow them to vote. So for example, if they're brand new, so they're not on your list, or maybe if they're assigned to multiple work sites and they're your work site that particular day, we do want them to have the opportunity to vote. Substitute teachers do not vote because they are not part of the bargaining unit. But if somebody is part of the bargaining unit, we do want to let them vote. So what you would do is this. Have them print their name at the bottom of your sign-in list. After they've printed their name, have them initial next to their name on the sign-in list. Once they've initialed, you'll give them a ballot just like anybody else that initialed by their name, and you'll allow them to vote through that method. If somebody knows that they will not be able to vote on your ratification vote day, there is a process to allow them to vote early. So what you'll want to do is to announce that employees who will not be present on the day of the vote may vote early by contacting you. You'll then follow all of the other voting procedures, have them initial by their name, give them a ballot, all of those procedures you'll still follow. Employees at other work sites or staff development on the day of the vote may vote at the location where they are that day, provided they have not already voted. So now let's talk about how we wrap this whole thing up. Once everyone's had the opportunity to vote, you're at the end of your ratification time, you're going to want to now band or staple together any unused ballots. Tally up the votes. Complete the enclosed vote verification form, and also attach any questionable ballots that will require review by the election committee to the vote verification form. So for example, if it looks like somebody voted yes and no, then you would attach that as a questionable ballot. So let's take a look at how to fill out that verification form. Of course, you're going to want to write the name of your work site on it. You're going to want to total up the number of employees who initialed the sign-in sheet. And when you do that, go ahead and include those who did not have their name on the sign-in sheet, so they printed their name and initialed. So total that number up and write it. Then below that, you total up the number of yes votes. Below that, you total the number of no votes. And if you have any questionable votes, you'll write those in there. The bottom line is this. You should make sure that the number of votes equals the number of people that initialed for a ballot. And finally, you're going to need to print and provide your signature at the bottom of that form. All right, now we're going to want to stuff the return envelope and get that ready to send back. So what you're going to want to do is take all of the voting materials and put it in there. You're going to want to make sure the vote verification form is in there. Have any questionable ballots attached to that vote verification form. You're going to want to put the voted ballots in there, grouped by yes votes and no votes. Stick the sign-in lists in there. We do want to see the sign-in list where people initialed. Stick that in there. Stick in any unused ballots that you have banded or stapled together. We've provided a procedure for you to be able to easily double check everything. If you look at that white envelope that you put everything into, there's a checklist on there. So make sure you complete the checklist to make sure you actually did everything that you meant to do. After you go through the checklist, now it's time to seal the return ballot envelope. So seal the flap on the return envelope and then sign your name over the sealed edge. You may also staple the flap closed. Only use one staple. Sometimes people use like 20 or 30 staples and it takes forever for us to open it later on. So now you're going to send that return ballot envelope through the courier to the USEP office. Do not place it in one of those manila courier envelopes. Leave it in the white envelope. Place that sealed return ballot envelope in the courier bag at the end of your balloting so that the courier can pick it up and bring it back to our office. They look for those white return envelopes, so it's real important that you not stick it in a normal courier manila envelope. I want to give you a reminder. We mentioned this earlier, but I want to give you a reminder that all bargaining unit members, whether they're union members or not, are allowed to vote. So that includes teachers on mini contracts and temporary contracts. That includes people that aren't normally assigned to your work site, but they are on your work site that day. It does not include substitute teachers. They may not vote. On the SRP side, assistant plant managers, they may not vote. Assistant managers and managers for FNS, they may not vote. Those people are not part of the bargaining unit. Numbers matter. If the number of ballots cast is greater than the number of ballots initialed on that sign-in list, then the election committee will be forced to deem the whole ballot envelope void. So as I mentioned earlier, make sure they initial before you give them a ballot, because you don't want a situation where you have more votes than you have initials. Once our office receives all of those return envelopes through the courier, we have a date and time in which all of those are counted in the office. That process is not some secret confidential process. In fact, all interested employees are welcome to attend. It is a public event. You can see on your screen right now the date and time that those votes will be counted, and that takes place at the USEP office. I mentioned this earlier, but I want to reiterate that we don't want you to do this alone. We want you to make this a team lift. So recruit other building reps at your work site to help, or recruit other members from your work site to help, or reach out to our office and get assistance with ratification at your work site. We want to get people to vote and join the union. So we recommend, as part of a team running ratification, that you bring the recent raises graphic organizer. We also suggest bringing a computer so that people can join USEP on the online join portal. The idea would be that one person would run the ratification while another person talks to potential members about union membership. Remember, we can't tell people how to vote, but you can tell people why you're a member. Tell them your story. Every situation with a potential member is unique. Believe it or not, some people think they're members and they're not. That might happen because somebody was a member when they used to work for the district, and then they left the district, and then they came back and they just assume that they're still a member. But in those situations, they do need to rejoin. Or in some cases, somebody never converted to the new dues payment system, and so they might think they're still a member, but they're not. So they need to rejoin. Some people just don't really know what we are or what we do, particularly new employees. And so it's great for you to have the opportunity to have that conversation with them and explain exactly what it is we do and who we are. There's also some people that never previously wanted to join, but maybe now they do, due to changing work conditions at your work site. The ratification process really is an important process, and we're excited that you've stepped up to be a part of it to make sure it happens smoothly at your work site. Success depends on you. Please don't hesitate to call our office with any questions or concerns. 813-996-2119. Thank you for all that you do at your work site.